Hey, this is Feliciano with Feliciano Friends. I have my good friend Jay Henderlite here. He is a reputable attorney in town, family law board certified, and he is a partner, right?
Partner, right?
Yes, with
Sasso, Guerrero, and Henderlite.
Yes, and he is the very best family law attorney in town. So if you're going through a divorce or you need a family law attorney, definitely check him out. So we've gone through questions before, and today we're just going to kind of spotlight, questions that maybe you guys have for a family law attorney that you don't ask. So first thing, we'll jump right into it. What is the biggest mistake people make before getting married?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, I don't ever get to meet them before they get married. But what I see,
make assumptions. I would
right?
say.
I mean,
Yeah. So what are I guess this okay? So to back up, so people get married thinking they're going to be together forever. So what are things that they're making mistakes beforehand to make that commitment? I guess I should.
I was talking about my other podcast, Split Happens. Check it out.
I know.
The idea of the divorce rate in this country is something like 52%. So more of us than not are going to have some kind of family law involvement, whether or not it's a divorce, whether or not it's a custody issue, if you have a child with somebody you don't marry. It's going to come up. And I don't think it's because all of those people go into relationships making mistakes or because they don't know what they're doing. I just think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think the way that most relationships devolve or turn into something that is not what you thought it was going to be is just because people change and grow and mature at different rates, and sometimes we can stay on the same trajectory and sometimes we can't. That's it. There are people that do not make the best choices, and what I see in breakups are people who are incompatible because their values don't align and never did.
Okay.
Things like what they wanted to do with money, whether or not they were spenders or savers. With children, child rearing can cause a lot of stress because usually what we end up doing is parenting our children the way that we were parented, and not all of us had great parenting role models, or we parent our children the opposite of how our parents did. And so if you don't really know how your partner is going to parent, and there isn't always a good way to know that, it can cause a lot of stress that can lead to strife. Other sources, in-laws, or family involvement, or extended family involvement in your family unit can cause a lot of stress. It's not something that everybody thinks about or pays attention to going into it, but that does, if you've got third parties that are in your relationship for an extended period of time and there aren't appropriate boundaries there, that's going to get old really fast, particularly if one is sort of the out spouse, meaning it's not their family that's involved. So things like that. So the biggest mistake really is just not always knowing really the answers to the hard questions, or sometimes even the hard questions to ask. The last thing I'll say on that is we are all sold on this idea of happily ever after. This idea of once you find your person, then things are good. You have no struggles or stress thereafter. And that is, for those of you who have ever been married or in a serious relationship, so as soon as most of you, we all know that's a lie, because it's really, that's the beginning. That's when a lot of the work starts to, grow, maintain, nurture the relationship. And sometimes it's harder to do that than it was to actually develop it in the first place.
So when you said, there was something, go back. You said they don't ask the questions beforehand. What are the questions they should be asking?
Well, that's kind of my point, that you don't always know what questions you need to ask. But because it's not always clear in the beginning what direction your life's going to take. But, big things like child rearing ideas, discipline ideas. Are you more of a traditional sort of authoritative parent? Are you more of a new age, let the children feel their feelings type parent? Not that I'm saying either is right or wrong, but if those values are not aligned, it causes problems. Things like money. Are you an anxious saver, meaning you have to have a certain amount of financial security threshold, or are you more of a spender, more of a use it while you got it type? Those things cause a lot of stress. What's your view on where you want to live relative to your extended family. Do you want to be in a different state? Do you want to be across the street? How do you see that playing out? Hobbies, how much time do you think is reasonable for one partner to devote to things that they like to do for themselves, which is always important, versus time that they should be involved in, activities as a couple, activities with the children.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of thing. Also, children, you want them? If you don't want them, don't think you're going to get there. And please, for the love of all that is holy, although it does keep me in business and maybe not, but if you don't want to pay me, do not, under any circumstances, have a child to save a marriage. You might buy me a beach house, but you will not save your marriage. Seriously. Also, and this is somewhat unrelated, but you really need to know yourself well. Because that's a problem a lot of people have, particularly when you're young. You don't always know who you are. You know a lot of what people expect of you and expect you to be, but it's sometimes hard to know kind of who you are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't really know who you are, it's hard to know what you want. It's hard to know what your value system is going to be. And so if you get a life on the foundation of what you believe other people expect you to do or be, that's going to come crashing down at some point. It just is.
That makes sense. So what's a big red flag you wish people would notice earlier?
In relationship or just in life?
Both.
Okay. Red flags to notice early. Well, in relationships, I think a big red flag is somebody who engages in behavior that is intended to manipulate or force you to agree to an outcome. Because it's never a healthy relationship if your position is invalid, if you don't...
Can you give an example of that? Because I feel like that's like clear and easy. I don't quite understand.
All right, so, I always use this example. The difference between an argument and a fight, right?
Okay.
An argument is two people who can articulate their positions and either have somebody else, this is what happens in court, tell them who's right or wrong. Or if you're not in front of a judge, then at least agree with or understand that there are three possible outcomes. You both agree that one is correct, you both agree that the other is correct, or you agree to disagree, and that's the end of it.
So what are the three? 1 second, I'm just because I fight I'm
well, so an argument
and
is
not fight a lot, but because it's like family friends, not like right. I'm a little bit what's the word confrontational.
But so it's okay.
So what are the three?
But an argument is you're both going to just express your positions, right? You're not going to do it endlessly. You're not going to do it over and over again, but you're going to express your positions. Yeah. And the three outcomes are that you have to accept as a participant in the argument is you can both agree that one of you is correct.
That's what my preference.
You can both agree that the other one is correct.
Not my preference.
Or you can agree that there's not going to be an agreement. That is an acceptable outcome.
That's the second, middle
right.
of the road.
But that means it's an argument because there is a resolution. It might be a resolution. It might not be your preferred resolution, to your point, but it's a resolution. A fight is two people endlessly going round and around, making the same argument, saying the same things over and over again, trying to convince the other one they're wrong and an asshole.
Okay.
And that never gets any satisfying resolution. And if you do that for months, years, decades, eventually you're probably not going to want to be in that relationship. And then beyond that, you've got the people that are, whenever they do something wrong, they find really creative ways to make it your fault. I've got a teenager and he's a master at that.
Yeah.
Most people grow out of it, but some don't. And the ones that don't, those are the ones where the red flag is just waving. If you know that the sky is blue, but you're with somebody that is trying to convince you that it is cerulean or some other bullshit, get away from that person. It's not happening. Doesn't matter if cerulean is the same as blue. Yeah. They're doing that because they're trying to undermine your confidence in your position, and that is a red flag. Anyone that asks you to give up your autonomy, anyone that asks you to give up your independence, they're doing that because they want to have power and control over you. That's a giant red flag. And that's not just in, marriages or personal relationships. That's in any kind of relationship.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what are things that people think are normal in relationships that you've seen actually leads to divorce?
Well, it's what people normalize in their relationship. So kind of what we're talking about. You start to normalize things like not having a voice in major decisions. Say somebody says, I make all the money, so I should control how we spend it. People can normalize that because it's easier than, I think, trying to change the dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably going to blow up at some point. If you have strong feelings about child rearing, and I keep coming back to children, because children can be really
Yeah. I would say
the
like
root
even
cause
with
of a
the
lot of
Mills and
relationship
I, when
problems.
we had children, it became a lot more difficult.
Well, just because one,
They're
a lot.
They are.
They are relentless in the fact that they are always,
Yeah.
requiring your attention
Yeah.
and energy. And I don't mean that negatively. It's just
Yeah.
it's just the way they are. And I say this because I have a kid, so it's a personal experience. And Christopher and I, my husband, will have this issue too sometimes. You can look at the exact same situation, exact same set of facts, behaviors, whatever, regarding your kid, and have completely different views about what's causing it and what the solution is, and you can both be right because you don't really know. I mean, you can base it on your experience, you base it on the knowledge that you have, and all of your sort of life experiences, but there's no guidebook or there's no ChatGPT cannot actually tell you really what the solution is to any parenting problem. You can ask, you can guess, but you're really not going to know for another 5, 10, 20 years.
Right.
So it causes stress because it goes back to the idea of anytime you have a disagreement with somebody, it's only a fair fight or fair argument if one of those three options is on the table. And if it's not, if it's just convince the other person they're wrong at any cost, well, I mean, the cost will probably be, at some point, either that person's sanity and or the relationship.
So can you predict divorce based on certain behaviors?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not spending a whole lot of time in other people's relationships.
But I mean, do you like hang out with couples and you're like back in your mind, like, yeah, they're gonna come see me?
I don't know if I do that or not, but what does strike me is the people that do see me, how similar a lot of these stories become.
Yeah.
And how it's almost to where, certain personality types, based on how they behaved, I can sort of predict how they're going to behave during the divorce. Just because, people or individuals, I think, are complicated, right? But people, in general,
I think
we follow somewhat predictable patterns. We're not on the whole as unique or interesting as we think we are, but if one-on-one, there's a lot of dynamics and interesting behaviors that we all like to.
But I do think people, like human beings, and I've really thought this like the last when I've gone through everything that I've gone through, is I think that human beings are much more complex than sometimes we give credit to. And I think that there's very much very black or white. And I think morality wise, in my opinion, and ethically, there is black and right. Like right is right and wrong is wrong. But I do think that when it comes to human beings as far as behavior, it's very interesting to me, and I think people are a lot more complex. And I think that recently I've developed a lot because I had a I am talking about myself, but a big estrangement with a lot of people in my family and with Milton's family after his death. And now, as I've healed or gotten healthier, I can kind of see their point of view. I might not agree with it or what, and I can also see too, maybe what they did in some ways were wrong, but from their mind, is right. And then, have you ever read the Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People?
A long time ago.
So I, for the longest time, didn't want to read it because I'm well, I don't want to manipulate people to be my friend, right? But then when I was incarcerated, I think they had it in the library or something, so I read it. And what was so interesting about it is that the part of the argument is that for the majority of people, and they give an example early in the book of someone murdered, someone that's been really heinous. Yeah. And they're like, why does everyone hate me? Almost that, not that it's justifying what they did, but often people will justify, their behaviors. And, even if it's not right, they are somehow believing that it's right. So if you kind of are aware of that, then maybe you can kind of work backwards. Not that you're going to tolerate unacceptable behavior, but...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I do agree with you that people are extremely complicated. And relationships are also going to be complicated because you're dealing with people. In because no one actually knows what's going on between the other person's ears, what causes a lot of friction in intimate relationships, marriages, but also just any sort of human interaction is making assumptions about what the other person is thinking, doing, going through. And usually, or at least for me, my brain always goes to the worst thing they could be doing.
Me too.
You know, I never have the, like,
I'm that way too.
Like, oh, I bet that person's just having a really bad day. Let me give them a hug. That's not where mine goes. It's they're being a judgmental asshole, and, you know, I hate them. That's just where I go.
Yes, he knows.
But, you know, at least knowing that about yourself, sometimes you can head it off. Not always, but sometimes.
I know. I'm a Christian, and I haven't actually read the book. When I was in yoga training, I was supposed to. But have you heard of the book, The Four Agreements? It's some like kind of new agey book. It was like a New York Times like bestseller. But I do know that one of the four agreements was like you don't know what's inside like in someone else's head. And like what you think is often wrong. But so what type of couples actually last long term? Or what couples or what qualities, I don't know. Right.
So yeah, I mean
I want to
value alignment.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. What I think is financial control when the women can't leave.
No,
that's why my grandmothers and my mother.
Financial control where the women can't leave.
Cut that. I'm not even joking. Don't cut that. I think that's true. But I think they do love. They love my grandfathers and they love my dad.
I think that's a generational. That is a bit of a generational mentality, right? And that worked.
Yeah, it's worked.
I don't know if it's the healthiest, and I don't know if a lot of people, probably in our generation, are wired to accept that.
Yeah.
Or to even see, because there almost was a societal contract, kind of implicit in that agreement, which was men would take care of the women would take care of the men.
Yeah.
And there was a certain amount of mutual respect, which doesn't seem to translate as well. And
to like interrupt, because I said that about kind of negatively about my family. Yeah. So to back up, both my American grandmother and my Swedish grandmother met my grandfathers when they were teenagers. They got married. They did not work, both of them. The grandfathers had full financial control over everything. I don't know fidelity wise or whatever, but they were taken care of. They loved their kids. They were great, great grandparents. And I always felt like they accepted it. Same with my mother, who came over as a Swedish exchange student. That with my father, who was American. And so as much as I'm kind of being like a little flippant that they were financially, they couldn't. I mean, all three of them really couldn't leave because they didn't have.
That was kind of the deal they were sold, because that in that era, for the most part, that was what marriage was sort of described to be, or what your parents or grandparents told you to expect. For girls it was find a husband. Yes. And for men it was you have a family and you're responsible to take care of them. Which, for most people worked out fine. There were of course people that worked out horribly. Yeah. And also that was from the era when women couldn't own property for the most part, and couldn't have a lot of, independence, still needed their husband to go with them to open a bank account. So we're not there anymore. And so that's not, and that's also not what people sell, right? That's not, when The Bachelor now is not talking about how to be totally subservient to your husband. No, for sure. The idea is equal partnership. Now, the couples that I think last are the ones that recognize that it takes a certain amount of both adapting to, their partner's growth, maturity, lack of maturity sometimes, that there's not a guaranteed happily ever after, that it's only really what you make it. And, I think I said this the last time, but it's this idea of you have to make a decision every day that being in the relationship is better than not being in a relationship.
What do you this is not on our questions. What do you think about for kids, how important it is to stay together versus not? Because I'm going to be like honest, when I look back, I don't know the ins and outs of my grandparents or my parents' relationship, but both of them met in teens. My parents were in their 70s. My grandparents died all in their 80s. I'm sure, and I know a little bit that they were strict, but there is something to the fact that I have them all as role models, is to kind of be like, you can stick it out. And I do think it kind of, in a positive way, makes me look at things, differently. But I don't know.
So, I mean,
maybe they all suffered horrendously.
So, my view is parenting is largely modeling, right? So, if you want your children to have the relationship...
My Swedish grandma was an alcoholic, and she did have, pseudo
So,
suicide attempts when I was younger, but I don't think they were that serious because they were just overdoses.
So, look, if you want your children to have the relationship...
But she was good.
that you are modeling for them, great. Give that to them. But if you think, I don't want this for my kids, then don't continue to shove it down their throats, because they're going to see it. Kids pick up on everything, and kids pick up on things that you don't think they pick up on. And having healthy co-parents, or, if you can... You separate with their other parent, but then you can find a healthy relationship, or the other parent can find a healthy relationship, or you both can find a healthy relationship, well, then you've got so many healthy models. And that is always going to be better
for sure
than continuing to expose them to an unhealthy model. And I firmly believe that the more people that love your kids, the better they're going to be.
100%.
I don't understand why people want to limit the number of people that love, support, and offer opportunities to their children. I just
I agree with that 100%. Personally, and for other people too, 100%.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is worse, cheating or financial dishonesty?
I don't think either one is worse. I think that both, of course...
One hurts you more emotionally, one hurts you more keeping a roof over your head.
Well, but at the core, they're both breaches of trust. And breaches of trust are very hard to repair, because you don't want to constantly worry about, is the other person... you don't want to have to go on Life 360 and see what the other person is. You don't want constant thoughts of, are they with somebody else, or are they at the casino, or whatever? Because now you're not really in control of your life. Somebody else's actions or behaviors or planning, running thoughts in your head, they're valid, but now, you're having to focus on their behaviors. And so, can you get to the point where you're not going to have those thoughts, you're not going to have that anxiety, you're not going to feel like you're walking on those eggshells? I don't know, maybe. I don't have, at least to my knowledge now, I'm quite confident, I do not have experience with either one of those things. So I can't personally tell you what would hurt me more. But what I can say is relationships that don't have that are no longer built on trust, or where they don't have that kind of mutual respect and faith that the other person is going to do for the relationship what they both agree or you think they should do for the relationship in terms of behavior, that's probably not a relationship that's going to last much longer.
I have a question that's not on here, but I think it's a pretty benign question that you feel comfortable asking. For marriages, do you notice that the marriages that kind of combine money, or it's our money, or whether they have separate, whatever you bring, I bring, it's our money, we make these joint decisions, versus marriages that are more, this is my money, this is your money. Have you noticed one works out better than the other? Because the reason I'm asking that is because Milton and I, when we were younger, we didn't have much. Everything was ours and everything. And then when we kind of had back and forth, we separated. And and this is maybe it was a personally look and see when we started really dividing things, it really caused, that was the beginning of really discourse in our marriage, whereas opposed to when we were not really paying attention to, who was more, and I just don't know if that was just a personal thing or if you've noticed that with
I think the answer really is, it's not so much is one better than the other, it's more, do both people agree on what the best structure is and what the parameters are, right? So if you're sharing everything, but one person is solely in control of the finances and makes all the decisions, well, if my money is going into a bank account, but I'm not in control of how that money gets spent, I'm probably not going to love that arrangement. But also, if you have everything separate and you're evenly dividing everything, but your partner's making a whole lot more money, and so suddenly it has a lot more kind of disposable income to do fun things with, I might not love that arrangement either.
Yeah.
But if everyone is clear and upfront and honest about what the arrangement needs to be, what the the ways in which that you solve problems, or the ways in which you communicate questions, concerns, displeasure, whatever. If you can have those conversations up front, then I think you've got a much better chance of success than doing something forever, which is usually fine right up until the time it's not.
Right. What's the number one things people fight about in divorce? I would say money and kids.
Money and kids. Sometimes kids and money.
That's what I assumed. I don't know what you think about this. There's like a divorce attorney they have a lot of shorts on like Instagram. He dresses nice. He has tattoos on both arms. I don't know his name. Just because there's not a ton of like divorce attorneys that like you see a lot on Instagram. But he gave an example, and I don't think he was being facetious. But basically, like this, like he was representing a woman, and like the husband or ex was just like so like whatever she wanted was just being so like just hateful, whatever. And she like went to him and was like, like for like, and I don't know if you've seen something kind of similar, like for this year, like I have family stuff with my family for Memorial. It's like it's a family thing. Like it's super important that the kids do Memorial Day. And he can have Labor Day, but like this year, I don't mind switching future years. But we have this like long family thing, like whatever you can do, please make this happen. And he said he went to when they were in mediation to the opposing counsel and was like, she's got something for Labor Day with the family. It's and the husband was so like, no, she cannot. And then he was like, all right, we'll just take Memorial Day.
It's funny.
Yeah. And
as you were telling that story, because what I thought you were going to say is that they offered Memorial Day and the husband said, hell no.
Yeah.
I thought was, well, I would have asked for Labor Day.
Yeah, exactly. So
and then he did it. So kudos to Tattoo Guy.
Okay,
but yes, there is a certain amount of knowing what makes the other person tick and what's motivating them and then using it against them in negotiation.
Exactly. He's like, I told her she got it not in the way you thought we would get it, but we got it. So.
I have actually done versions of that myself because there is this mentality people get into. It's almost like, the 7th grade emotional regulation, which a lot of people never mature out of, which is they only want what you want.
Exactly.
Or, you want what you can't have type thing. Mm-hmm. So, but if you know it and you recognize it, look, use it to your advantage. You didn't make them feel that way.
No, for sure. So, how do you know if it's just a rough patch or it's time to leave?
I don't know if there's a difference because we all have our different pain tolerances, right? We all have our different personal boundaries or different, pain points, things we're willing to accept. And so what some people can tolerate for years or decades, other people, they're done.
Yeah.
Didn't you get divorced on a bluff? Basically.
Yeah.
Isn't that your story? Yes.
On a bluff? Kinda. Yeah. I mean, I was like, kind of. I mean, yeah.
And I'm not trying
to... it wasn't like completely a bluff. Like, we obviously like went... Like, I did mean it, kind of, but I didn't think he was going to do it.
Look, I'm not bringing it up because I'm saying you were wrong or shouldn't have done it. I just bring it up to say other people might have waited a little longer.
Divorce, how I didn't file it. I had no attorney. Even when it was like settled, I didn't go. It was very like, all right.
Yeah, right. So your divorce may have been somebody else's rough patch. It's very personal.
Yeah, I think it was a rough patch since we like got pregnant right after the divorce.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I think it was a bluff. I mean, but it was a bluff, but I wasn't like super bluffing because we went through with it. We went through he went through with it.
I will say, usually.
Our kids are going to have character and personality for sure.
Rough patches that involve divorce filings. Look, there are people that have filed for divorce but not gone through with it and stayed together. There are also people that have gotten divorced, gotten remarried, and stuck it out.
Mm-hmm.
There are not many of those people. So, probably, for most people, if you file for divorce, if you actually get divorced, that's probably it. That's probably the end of the relationship. Might not be. I'm not your therapist.
Well, we had 2 more children afterwards.
I'm not saying.
We had a second divorce on paper, too. Duval County said there was a resolution afterwards where 2 more children were created.
But I'm not saying you're most people.
But they still couldn't get along, so now we gotta add some more child support.
Rather than the rule. Generally speaking, though. If you file and if you go through with it, just move on.
Yeah.
Be a great co-parent. Be best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy each other's company. Don't have more kids. Don't get back together. And here, look. I'm a big proponent of therapists. I'm a big proponent of using therapists to get to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. Therapists are cheaper than divorce lawyers.
Right.
Hear me when I say that.
Oh, did I tell you my therapist story?
No.
Okay, so I have a therapist that was court ordered for me after my criminal case. Basically, they were like, "Hey, she's former director of guardian ad litem. You can't see or speak to your children until she says it's okay."
Right.
I meet her. We click. She ended up looking at all the court documents. Actually, my super big advocate. This is in 2020. Testified on my behalf. I still see her for talk therapy. Really great. Really gives me solid. What's different about her compared to some therapists is she gives me very solid advice. So when I talk about family, she'll be like, "Well, in theory, textbook, this would be the solution. However, you're probably not going to do this. So how about we, So it's so she's a very good therapist, and she actually, I wouldn't say meet me halfway, but so she gives me a lot of really great advice.
Actionable.
Yeah, actionable advice when it comes, or even with the job where I'm like, okay, well, how about we just not sell or quit, or let's just give it another month or next week. How about we'll just talk about this more now? Let's table this.
Somebody that knows how your mind works.
Yeah.
Knows what. Where your thoughts are going to go, and you can help kind of guide those thoughts so that you don't make rash decisions. And that you don't just sort of act on instinct.
Yeah, and I've been diagnosed with OCD. When all the court stuff was going on, I was diagnosed with OCD. And I was diagnosed with OCD with poor onsight, but I feel like now I have a better onsight to it since they made me aware that I had poor insight to it. So they onsight. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with OCD with poor insight to my OCD. But now I feel like it's brought to my attention a lot. That's your OCD, that's your obsession, that's your compulsion. So she'll be like, this is your OCD. Let's, it's not even a month or something. She's just I'm not, just we won't do anything.
It's hypothetically.
Yeah, and then, next week, but I do have these periods, every, maybe once a year to 4 times a year, where I've really got a PTSD, which doesn't happen. It's almost hard to explain, but I start thinking about Milton's death with the kids. It's pretty dark, where it's really not good for me, to the point that even it's very
shit. That's
it's
gonna leave an impression.
Yeah, so to the point that one night, kind of recently, was this calendar year. I texted her hey, can I see you in the morning? She's like, which I don't do often. She's like, I can't. But then one night I spoke to her in the morning. I'm like, hey, I'll pay you over the phone for the hour, but now it's past. And she said I think the talk therapy is good. I think now you have pretty good, insight to it. But she was like, have you thought of EMDR? Have you heard of EMDR?
It's the eye thing. I know it.
I had a horrific experience with it.
Never done it. Never.
So I supposedly it gets worse before it gets better. But yeah, they do these things. They basically get you into a PTSD state, and then they try to I guess with the brain and the eyes, try to calm you. When I was doing it, it was kind of okay, but then it was really bad for the weekends. And I tried it a few times because the thing is Max, my oldest, is turning 18 next year, so I'm I'll do anything to be healthy. And then I'm anything but this EMDR. I'm just going to do talk therapy, and I'm going to try to be waspy and shove it down the rest of my family and call it a day.
Being open to try different things is good, but also know yourself, know it works.
Yeah, I was this is not where I did 3 or 4, and I'm look, this isn't, this is not
happening.
This is not going to work for me. What's the biggest financial stake people make in marriage?
I mean, spending more money.
I was going to say spending all their money.
But, sometimes it's purposeful, and sometimes it's kind of unavoidable, and sometimes, things work out. so much of life in general is luck and timing. You know, at least that's in my experience. And I say that because there have been times that I've been good about saving and times when I haven't. And, you know, I think any kind of, no matter what you have, in terms of a financial plan, in terms of, you know, income versus expenses, wherever you are, there's always going to be somebody either on the internet or in your circle who is going to tell you you're doing it wrong, you could be doing it better, whatever.
Yeah.
And this is my own personal soapbox, I suppose. It's not responsive to your question, but you know, it's more like knowing yourself and also kind of having faith in, you know, that things are going to ultimately work out. But yeah, people's financial mistakes are, you know, if you're spending more money on hookers than you're spending your kids, that's a problem. If you spend more money on drugs than you're spending your kids, that's a problem. You know, you should probably not use the strip club at the ATM or the ATM strip club that's tied to the bank account. You got to disclose your divorce if you don't want your wife to know that you know, probably paid thousands of dollars for lap dances. Like, there are mistakes that are going to cost you in the divorce. But yeah, I mean, in terms of finances,
right?
You know, at the end of the day, we all want to have whatever Dave Ramsey tells us we're supposed to have, but you know, sometimes it's reasonable, sometimes it's not.
Well, it's funny that you say that, and maybe I should. I don't think they could get on me. If I sit there at a corporation, can they get on me?
I don't. Not unless you speak negatively about them.
We'll see. Tell me how this lands.
Okay.
So Milton was an attorney and chief compliance officer for, and he would have to like tell like his employees like, hey, when you go to Asia, you can only put this much on the company card for hookers.
Well, yeah, they probably don't like that. I wouldn't name.
We'll bleep the out of there. And they'll have to do a deep dive into where he worked in Jacksonville, downtown Riverside area.
So, yeah, I mean,
I think there were so.
What screws people up is
because you would have to call them and be like, hey, like if you're, you know, like you're gonna have to like code it as dinner and keep it to 100, 200.
Yeah, I mean, what's gonna screw you up in life? Yeah, it's spending more money than you save, and then you get to old age and you got nothing left. But what's gonna screw you up in court? I was actually talking to one of my colleagues about this morning about, you know, how to prove dissipation of marital assets, and really it's coke, gambling, hookers.
Right.
Some other drugs too, just, you know, coke for dramatic effects. But other than that, yeah.
No, that's true. That's my business partner. I don't know. He said somebody famous. I don't know if it was because was Winston Churchill, was he like faithful and a good person?
I don't know about him.
Well, because I think this quote might be attributed to him, but it's not attributed to him. It's a pretty bad quote to give to Winston Churchill. That's why I'm asking. Anyways, somebody famous said, maybe WC, that he spent half his money on whiskey, women, and gambling. And then he wasted the other half.
The Churchill? I don't know.
But yeah, that was a pretty, like, yeah.
I'm not sure that's solid life advice, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if they were famous enough to be quoted, I guess it worked out.
Yeah, well, I mean, the joke is that obviously he thought that half of it was worth it for the whiskey.
Got it.
Yeah, because the whole thing is like, hey, whiskey, women, you know, or whiskey, women, gambling, and then I wasted the other half.
I suppose I would ask Mrs. whoever that is what her thoughts were, but the children, what their thoughts were, but sure.
All right, who gets hit hardest financially in the divorce? Women if they're not working.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
I mean, almost
whoever is not working.
Almost always the lower income earning spouse.
Yeah.
Only because alimony is capped now in Florida, at least, where it can't be more than 35% of the difference between each party's net income. Okay. So, I mean, generally speaking, your best day in court is you're still going to make less and get less than spouse. Now that said, I like to encourage people to view that as, you know, not the amount of money they're going to get, and it's going to cut off at some point, and then they're screwed. That's how most people think about it. But think of it as an investment in, all right, you're going to have a period of time where somebody else is going to give you money by court order. How can you use that to achieve whatever dream, achieve whatever career goal that you may have set aside, to figure out what your purpose is? Because a lot of people end up putting their dreams aside, stop trying to figure out what it is they're meant to do, or they start to doubt that they have a purpose, that they have that there are things out there for them. I think we all are made with special skills that are designed to make us, perhaps average or sub-average in most things, but there are always one or two areas of life or the world that we all have superpowers in. And figuring that out and figuring out what your superpower is, and using that as a way to build a foundation for your life, your financial security. If people can figure that out, then it really is life changing.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, it's tough because it's scary and it's an unknown, and I get it, but people can do that. It's just amazing.
And then how do you protect yourself financially? Squirrel away money. You know what my American grandma did when she got dementia? I guess my grandfather would give her an allowance every week, and then when they had to clean the house, there was money squirreled away everywhere. She never had to take it and run, but just in case. There was a lot. Right. A lot.
Look, I'm not a money guy. I don't know how to make anyone financially secure. All I can say is always want to appreciate what you got. Figure out assess where you are, what your baseline is, and then find ways to improve it, to grow it. It's always good in all facets of life, not just earning money, not just working, but all facets of life. Keep growing, keep figuring out, what can I do differently, what can I do better, what can I do more efficiently. So it's more have that mindset, more than, so I guess learn how to hustle. Learn how to, continue to invest in yourself. Don't put limits on yourself. Don't put limits on what you can do. Don't put limits on your potential. Don't be afraid to dream big dreams. Don't be afraid to go after big dreams. If you do all of those things, if you focus on, your kind of internal belief system and not just on how much money you get every month, I think that, at least for me, when I started having that mentality, I had a lot more ability to sort of...
I was going to say, do you kind of advise that for I would think that, or you should, if you don't, but when people come and they're very I don't have money, do you kind of say hey, you could make more if you did more?
No, because that's
not tacky. Did more. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what I'm...
No, because,
That's what I tell people.
It's always...
I mean,
advice is only going to land on people that want to get advice.
I know, but if someone's bitching you about they don't have any money, you could be
yeah, because you're out working hard enough, or you got a crap mentality.
That's kind of true.
But no one wants to hear... Or not everyone wants to hear that.
But how are they going to pay for you?
The advice I give my clients is not the necessary advice we're having here, because
you need that to pay the bills.
People are where they are, and I believe that people are where they're supposed to be, and it's not my job to tell them that they are wrong, that they are holding themselves back. Now, what I do like to do, and I'm trying to actually get a little more intentional and have more of a structure in our law firm about this, is give them, provide resources, make resources available, provide kind of regular access to, financial professionals, mental health professionals, real estate broker, anyone that can help people grow, just because I think it's important, and you never know when you're going to need somebody. You never know when, the right opportunity is going to present itself. And so having a network, having access to a network is always huge. So that's what I want to offer my clients and be better about.
No, that's good. Let me ask you, for people that are when people go through a divorce, sometimes people can liken it to feeling like a death. It's a huge, it is not enough, huge grief, death, super pain. How long would you tell people, like, just to wait through the pain that it usually gets better? I'm just curious. I'm not, like, for real.
So I couch it in terms of when can most people get to the point where they can make decisions about ending the marriage in an objective way?
No, I would say when it's already happened. So, like, so you're going through a divorce.
Yeah.
And, like, I have friends of mine that are going through a divorce or they have a breakup. And that, like, that feeling, or I'm sure they have clients here, of just such despair. Like, they don't see that. Like, how long does it take usually to just, like, feel the despair and then start to see light?
Well, so what I see is, it takes usually 3 to 6 months for people to move from the emotional place, however the emotions present themselves, whether it be anger, whether it be despair, whether it start as anger and then go to despair and then go to rage. I mean, whatever the novelty of emotions are. Because in our world, it's when can we get to a position where both people can objectively, look at the contract of their marriage, look at how can they split their assets and potentially come to an agreement. And that is typically 3 to 6 months. So I would assume it translates to, when does the kind of initial wave of overwhelming grief pass. But I think it's different for everyone, and I think it's also different based on how things fell apart, what was going on leading up to it, all of those things.
Do you ever have, like, really emotionally mature people and you're like, this is nice? Or is everybody emotional?
Well, everyone's emotional in different ways. And they should be, right? I mean, it would make me nervous if they're not emotional. People that are not exhibiting the emotions that you would expect people to exhibit when their life is blown up are probably questionably. Probably there's something going on up there, which is questionable. I didn't say it. You said it. That said, it ends in path, and it's not good.
How many of them do you get, percentage-wise?
I don't see it that often.
I bet that's easier to deal with, though.
But with people, some people are very like, I'm not feeling emotions, I want to get to the end. Well, no, you are feeling emotions. Your emotion is, this is very distressing to you, and the way your brain thinks is, I just need to get it resolved and then I can move on, which is not actually true. It's just conditioning your sort of future happiness and serenity on the happening of a future event. Some people are, of course, really, really angry. And no matter what the other person wants, they're going to say no to. That's the Labor Day, Memorial Day person.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very common. That's what we all think about. Some people withdraw or just become very passive. And that can be problematic too, because you think whatever they want, I'll just give them whatever they want. And, you think about that or see that mentality not as being emotional, but as being, perhaps understanding or overly kind, but it's the same kind of problem, because if you give away everything and then when you get to the place where you're not acting on emotions, you're probably going to regret it, either because you now don't have what you need, you feel taken advantage of, even if you weren't necessarily. And then, of course, you got people that are feeling guilty and will make decisions based on guilt, but it leads to sort of the same problem. And people can make emotional decisions early on, and I see people do it. I try really hard, really, really hard, particularly when there are kids involved or when there's a lot of money involved, for people just to wait, to just not do anything until 3, 4, 5 months have passed, just because that's closer to the mentality that they're going to have, and that's closer to the mental state that they're going to have for the rest of their lives. And so if you make a decision when you're in a heightened emotional state that is very temporary and is going to be gone, and then you have to live with that for the rest of your life, you're going to cop a couple of resentments. And if you've got children with that person, it's not going to make your life easier. It's going to make it harder.
That's interesting. What do you think people think they're entitled to, but in your opinion they aren't? Maybe legally they aren't, or ethically they aren't. I don't know. There's the same answer or different.
So, people tell me all the time, including this morning, well, I just want what I'm entitled to. Well, really, you're entitled to whatever you can put to court to get. But there is no bright line rule. I mean, the closest thing to an entitlement is, so if you get divorced in Florida, any asset that you accumulated during the marriage is typically marital, that's going to get split down the middle probably. Debt, same thing. If you own a house together, either somebody buys the other one out for half the equity or gets sold split. So, that's a relatively straightforward entitlement. There are, of course, a myriad of different ways people can find ways to fight about stuff like that. is it marital? Is there a premarital component? Whatever. But that's about as close to an entitlement as you can get. The second relatively straightforward thing is child support because it's based on both parties' incomes, the number of overnights, and certain allowable deductions. It's a statutory formula. I have a whole program I just plug the variables into, and it spits out a number, and that's what it is. Usually. Now, people fight about the variables all the time, what the incomes are. Of course, they fight about the number of overnights. But that's somewhat of a straightforward entitlement, for lack of a better word. But listen, if you come into my office and you say, I just want what I'm entitled to, I will go like this. It's a very triggering word for divorce lawyers. The second triggering word for divorce lawyers is fair. I just want what's fair. Well, look, the fair comes in November. Fair is a 4-letter word. Fair is a word of perspective, right? What you think is fair is not what they're going to think is fair. So please don't come into my office and ask what's fair.
This is what I would say. I just want to be done and be okay. How would you feel about me?
What does that look like? What does that look like to you? What does being okay look like to you?
Being okay would be that I still am mentally happy and healthy, so I can still make a living and take care of my family,
and so
my friends.
To be happy and healthy and make a living, what do you need to continue to make a living? What do you need? Do you need a certain amount of financial security? Do you need a certain amount of income? Do you need a certain amount of time for yourself so you can devote that to your business?
Probably not, because honestly, like, this is why probably you might say, like, I should try to go for more, because I'm so, like, I could just, like, make it again.
But I mean, that's my point. That kind of dialogue, though.
So I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, give me a month or two where I got a house and a car, but after that, I should be able to, like, you know what I'm saying, from past history, like, figure out something to keep it going on my own accord.
That is really something that that I really want to get out from people, because if you just say, "Well, I just want to be okay," well, I don't know what that looks like for you, because I don't live your life.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want some random person guessing for you.
Yeah.
And, we talk about things like what are entitlements and assets, and we can split assets. Well, what's better? Is it better for you to have a house that, has positive equity, but you can't live on the equity? I mean, you may have a nice monthly payment, and if you ever sell that house, then you can take some cash and use it for whatever. But if you want a place to live, you're not going to sell the house. Is it better to sell the house, equally split the proceeds, you both have a pot of money to start over, and then split a retirement account that's going to continue to be invested and grow, and so you have a nest egg going forward. So there are different ways.
What's the personality type that's like, take the money and run? I think I have that.
Well, I mean, we all want as much as we can get, right? I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a personality type. It's a human being.
Okay, that's what I fall under. I just want to be okay. Also, take the money and run. What can we do?
As much as we can, and I'm all about what is the best way to structure this deal. How much money can we get? How much money can we get somebody to give up? That's what I'm here for ultimately. But no, I don't think there's anyone that is, if they are being honest with themselves. There are a lot of people that will be dishonest with themselves and say something that is a blatant lie.
Yeah.
But those of us being honest will say, we are always, given a choice, we take the money and run.
Yeah, okay.
If the other person said, you can have it all, no honest person would say, no, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't think.
What is, like, the fastest way that you see things get, like, unnecessarily messy?
When people make decisions on emotion. 100%.
How long does it take to calm down from emotion?
3 months, 4 months, 5 months.
Oh, damn.
6 months. 20 years, I don't know. Usually 3 to 6 months.
I've heard that too, even in, like, business, like, just to not make, like, big decisions. But, yeah.
But look, I will never, partly because it's just not possible usually to get a case mediated, which is where we settle most cases. But I will never, even if I could, mediate a case within the first 3 months of separation or filing. Just won't do it, because people are almost never emotionally able to objectively make rational decisions. They're going to make emotional decisions.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the smartest way to keep it clean and peaceful?
So,
both other people find lovers and are happy. So they're not trying to destroy the other one.
Right, yeah, I mean, don't try to destroy the other one. That's a good way. Usually find a way to act on your first thought that is not actually acting on your first thoughts. What I mean by that is have a trusted confidant or even make up a fake email account or, text your best friend the crappy or the nasty city email you would have sent to your spouse and then send a better one.
Yeah. Go to ChatGPT.
Go to ChatGPT and see what they can draft for you.
Do you use ChatGPT?
I mean, not to communicate with my husband, but for other purposes. Yeah. But yeah, ChatGPT is great. But it also remembers everything, so just be careful.
I know, it will be like...
ChatGPT is an open AI, so don't put your personal information in ChatGPT.
I'll ask questions and it'll be like, you're a beach yoga girl. I'm like, wait a second, that has nothing to do with mine.
So yeah, just friendly advice. But no, ChatGPT is great. But find ways to, understand that you're going to be really emotional, but also you have to have grace for yourself and grace for the other person because you're both going to probably, almost certainly, act on emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. It's the human condition. It's what almost all of us are going to do. In fact, what probably all the normal people are going to do.
Yeah.
Right? So it's never smart to just assume the worst of the other person. And look, what people are going to do early on in a divorce case, they're going to kind of circle their wagons. They're going to posture. People don't know how to act.
Mm-hmm.
People tend to treat divorces or divorce litigation, particularly early on, freaking criminal case, I have the right to remain silent, so I'm not going to say anything to you, or I can't say anything without talking to my lawyer. And, there's wisdom in that when it comes to big things.
Yeah.
Maybe making big purchases or moving money around, things that could potentially get you in trouble that you should ask about first. But people start, somebody that you've lived with for, 5, 10, 20 years, you have children with, you've been intimate with, right? That, suddenly you're not willing to tell them what time you're picking the child up from school or where your kid is. That stuff is just always going to bite you, and it's going to create friction, and it's just going to cause, the temporary emotional acrimony that is expected in the first 3 to 6 months, but will almost always pass. That's what's going to cause it to perpetuate.
It's interesting you said that because when I was going through all the legal stuff with my kids' family, I was always told by all attorneys, just do not speak to his family. Not just the people that have the children, but the extended family. Don't speak to them at all. They can speak to this. It could be used against you. And then, when I lost everything, and I had maybe an option of doing a fraud in the court, but I chose not to. The advice from attorneys is at this time, because you don't have the legal stuff going on, to the family that you might think you could be cool with, reach out to them. And I've done that, and now over the last 2 years, it's been amazing because we don't have all these court things going on. So now we can just talk. I mean, it's been really, really positive.
It's a posturing thing.
Yeah, so it's just interesting stuff because it's made a huge difference. And we can talk about things that I'm not worried about. Even if it gets whispered, no one's going to... it's been very, very positive. Whereas opposed to when there's a court case, it was so much stress.
One thing that's really hard about my job, I think, or what is unexpected for clients, is most people seem to be conditioned that the best way to handle any kind of divorce is to be acrimonious and always be prepared to fight. And I think it's Franklin Roosevelt that said,
not what's in Churchill.
Speak softly but carry a big stick. The idea is you want to, as best you can, for the sake particularly of children, if children are an issue, preserve relationships with extended family, with the other parent, with the other parent's parents. Because you're probably going to want or need those people at some point. And you're definitely going to run into them. And how miserable is it going to be for your kids if every time grandma, grandpa, mom and dad show up to baseball and you all obviously hate each other? That's going to be a miserable experience. And, people just kind of need to think about that. And courts are very kumbaya now in the sense of what they want, what the judges expect is for everyone to put aside all of whatever it was, whether it was minor, whether it was
major.
the worst kind of infidelity, narcissistic abuse that you can expect. Put that all aside and, for the good of your children, act as if none of that ever happened. Sometimes, or there are very valid reasons why that is aspirational and not attainable for people. But probably for more people than not, it is attainable. But we're all somewhat conditioned to think that we shouldn't try for those things. And so that causes a lot more kind of long-term acrimony. And so, what you're going to hear probably absent, facts that would change this advice, which is, you need to try to get along. You need to be able to communicate, even if it's just matter of factly. It at least needs to not be insulting. It needs to not be, dripping with disdain. And you want to be able to exchange your kids in a way that doesn't make it appear that you both hate each other. That's always the goal. And really what we tell people is once we draft a parenting plan, which is the document that talks about when kids with mom, when the kids with dad, who gets what holiday, all this stuff. You want to put it in the drawer, close it, never look at it again. Because you want to be able to figure out what schedule works best for your kids at whatever stage of life and never have to actually pull it out of the drawer. That's really the ideal. But that's not what people think the ideal is. People think the ideal is I should get everything and the other probably should get nothing. And that's not really how our, at least as it relates to custody, our courts are set up right now. There are, of course, reasons why somebody could get more time. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's all going to be 50-50, but the point is, more often than not, if you're getting divorced and you go to a lawyer, the advice you're going to get is how can you, long-term, be at least cordial. And if you can do that, it's going to be beneficial to your kids, and it's also going to be beneficial long-term to you because, you might actually want, I don't know, the other parents to help with college, and you want to be able to ask that, right? You may want at some point, your other parents' to babysit your kids because look, kids are great, but we need breaks, and there are always more benefits to having people love, help, protect, support, provide opportunities to your kids. I mean, there's no downside to any of that. And so, to the extent that during this period of emotional, heightened emotional state, right after you break up, the extent that you can sort of prevent yourself from causing those relationships to fracture, unless there's a good reason to do it, right? And, people that are abusive, sure, you don't need those people in your life. People that are demeaning, there are real good reasons to cut people out of your life. I get that. I'm not saying don't cut out. You shouldn't cut out unhealthy people. Absolutely get rid of them. But if you're just punishing people or your resentment is based on just their proximity or their relationship to the person that you're breaking up with, maybe just don't do anything. If you can't say anything nice, just don't say anything at all.
That makes sense. That's good advice. What is one piece of advice before getting married that you would give somebody?
It's kind of what we talked about earlier. Know yourself. Know what you want. Know what types of things are important to you. So that you can know, is this person going to meet those needs? Look, sometimes you don't need your spouse to meet all your needs. I think that's a common misconception that people think that the other person completes me. Was it that Jerry Maguire? Like, okay, fine, but look, if that is your expectation, that whenever you are feeling down, if you're putting your emotional well-being, stability, that you expect the other person, whenever you are feeling any type of negative feeling, to fix that for you. Like that's an unrealistic expectation that's gonna lead eventually to resentment. It's going to cause things to break up, probably. So you just have to recognize, just things about yourself, and because you're also going to grow, you're going to change what's important when you're in your 20s is probably not going to be important in your 30s. So, yeah, just do the hard work. Like, to quote RuPaul, love yourself or you can love somebody else.
And then what would you say, what's a strong, healthy relationship look like, in your opinion? Not seeing you?
Not seeing me. Well, like, always it's different for different people, but, there has to be balance. And balance doesn't have to be, an equal division of labor. Because, you talking about your grandparents, that may not have been a balanced relationship in terms of, who made major decisions or who earned the money, but it may well have been balanced in terms of, who was responsible for, earning money, who was responsible for the household.
Yeah, and the child rearing.
Right, and child rearing. And if there is mutual respect of each person's roles and the value they both brought to the relationship, then that's probably healthy. If there's not, if you've got a breadwinner who says, well, I make all the money, so I'm the most important one here, well, that's not great. That's not going to, that is not an equal division. And if you have people that are, more egalitarian and want to share child rearing equally, they want to share household responsibilities equally, it's great as long as they're communicating open with what they want that to look like. And, you're always going to have to a certain extent, compromise on what the other person wants. Because if it is always going to, if it's your way or the highway, either you or the other person is actually going to be on the highway. Like that is going to happen.
For sure. And I'm telling you that afterwards I'll look him up and tell you what his name is. So the tattooed, because I say tattoo, but he's always like 3-piece suit, but then he'll like tattoo. He said
sleeveless 3-piece suit.
I don't know. It's weird. I guess it's like up a little bit. You can see that he's like I don't know. It's not sleeveless, but it's like he must just have it up where you can see that he's sleeved. But he looks really proper. But when he was asked a similar question, his thing is, or his advice was just like, there's like 3 billion, I don't know how many billion people in the world there are. And he said, when 3. So there's 3 billion. So he said, when.
No one will fact check you unless you invite them to. So there are 3 billion people
there's 3 billion
in the world.
In the
Continue.
World. There's 3, as we all know, there's 3 billion people in the world. And he said, when basically people stop being each other's like advocate and cheerleader, is when it starts to, basically fall apart. And when he said, when people start to kind of dislike you, and he's like, that's like the beginning of the end, because there's like life is so hard. There's billions of people, and you have one person that you can choose. If you choose to marry one person that you're choosing, this is my partner. Life's tough, and we're gonna try to be each other's cheerleaders and advocates. And what he's noticed is when they stop being their advocates and cheerleaders, that is at the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I think that's very true, because it's kind of based on this idea, if you're not valuing the person that you're married to, if you don't see what makes them special, and if you don't, acknowledge things that are important to them when they happen, then you're going to start to sort of get into this, well, what am I doing here situation.
For sure.
If you don't value them and you don't feel valued, I mean, at the end of the day, isn't that really one of the sort of purposes?
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, when he said it made sense. Yeah, exactly. We all just want to be loved. Do you like the red clay strays?
What now?
No, I guess you don't. When I say no.
Do I look like that's something I would know out?
It's a band.
I know.
They do kind of like Southern rock. Anyway, they have a song. I love them, but they have a song. I just like you want to be loved. Just that basically people like their down like their desire often is just wanting to be loved by somebody else.
There's also, I think, something important.
I want to be loved.
That I'm really learning. But as it comes to talking about wanting to be loved, it's knowing love languages, because people show love in different ways.
Yeah.
And if you're not aware of how people are showing you love, if you expect them to do it one way, but they're not wired to do it, but if they feel like they are, if you got somebody that's an active service and is showing you love in terms of active service, to where you're always, there's always something ready for you, or maybe your car always has gas in it, or little things like that. But if you're somebody that is needs a lot of actual physical touch, or just a lot of close contact or conversation, if that's your love language, it doesn't. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a deal breaker if you don't have the same love language. In fact, I think there's a lot of compatibility in people that have different love languages. But the problem becomes if you don't recognize that, understand it, and put value on it. Well, then you're going to be in a situation where you don't feel like you're getting or you're not feeling love, that everyone's feeling from the other person, and that person's going to feel like I'm doing all of these things for you. How can you not see that? And then that's going to cause friction.
No, that makes sense. So, to wrap it, I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked you last time for the last 2 questions.
It's the gotcha ones.
No, they're not gotcha. The one is well, I always say like a man without a vision perishes, so I always ask what someone's 5-year vision is. Sorry about that fly this whole time.
I'm trying not to look at him.
I promise you, this is the first time I've noticed that fly.
Oh, he's been here the whole time.
No, I mean, I've noticed it the whole podcast, but I'm saying I haven't noticed a fly in my house until today.
Yeah. It's a new friend.
Almost like it's like an omen.
You let the divorce lawyer in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
back to me. So, 5-year plan.
Or a shapeshifter. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, so, we try to put together this law firm, which is something that's unique and novel and no one else is doing, both in terms of providing the best level of service, but also providing things that no one else is doing. So, I want to put together effectively networks for my clients. This is your network when you leave. This is who you can communicate with. If you have this particular need, if you want to buy a house, this is who you can talk to. If you want to, talk to somebody about investing, this is who you talk to. If you want to talk to somebody about completing your education or different career paths, you can talk to, because we all need networks.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a while to develop networks, and until you do, it can feel very unsettling or insecure. And so, I want to be able to put that together and offer that just really as a service, because I do think it's important for everyone to figure out who they are, who they're supposed to be. And, I've said this many times. In fact, my podcast, Split Happens, TM. It's really based on the idea that because most of us are going to go through this at some point in our lives, I want to reframe it in a way that is more of an opportunity as opposed to just this awful, horrible thing to have to slog through. And so if it's an opportunity, if it's a time for a reset and to, achieve goals that you thought were off the table because of your marriage or your relationship, then I want to be able to offer people the ability to do that.
No, that's really positive. I think that's very helpful for people too.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Words to live by.
Words, favorite quote.
Not to undermine everything we talked about therapy, but the point of therapy is to understand that the root of all your problems is you. And I think if you can understand that and accept that it's all about what you can do or how you respond in a situation that's causing you stress, whatever, makes life a lot easier to manage moving forward.
That makes sense. So I'm the problem.
I'm the problem.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Feliciano and Friends. If you need a great family law attorney, reach out to Jay. He's the best. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.